No, that's a legit workout. My name is Jessica Holyfield, and I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we are here taking a look at WDCC's gold medal performance, Royal Family, the World Finals. I am excited for this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this just came out quite recently, and I had a lot of you guys request for me to look at this. Firstly, because I have been looking at the Street Woman Fighter franchise for quite some time. Royal Family will be making an appearance on the show. Very excited to see them there, and so being able to see another entity of Royal Family represented in a different circuit, of course we got to check it out. Secondly, I got permission from WDCC directly to be able to review these videos. I reached out to them personally because I wanted to be a good steward of the potential opportunity of being able to review in this scope and lens, and I didn't want to be secretive about it, and I didn't want to just do it without reaching out, because I think might as well. And they said that it's absolutely fine, and they'll be getting a link to this video as well. So if in the event they're like, Jess, thumbs down, we don't want this, I will take it down out of respect for them. So thank you to Steven as well as Arnell and Cheyenne. You guys are, I love you guys so much. And Steven, thank you for your blessing as well. So we're going to go ahead, take a look through. Please keep in mind, I'm not affiliated with WDCC. I'm a commentator and dance analyst for YouTube. But I also have adjudication experience through Hip Hop International. So there is a huge overlap in terms of rules and regulations between the two circuits. But there are differences because I did read up on the WDCC equivalents of the rules just so I can have a better lens going into what we're looking at. I'm very excited. Let's go ahead and get into it. That's a nice stage. I look-y like how reflective it is. Did it say workout complete at the end? Hold on. No, that's a legit workout. Okay, cool. Cool. I wanted to touch on a couple things. A lot of people, I would assume, were thinking in terms of, if you're thinking that this is the exact same as HHI, it's technically not, especially in a couple components. Firstly, style justification. What I noticed here, their styles that they brought, they had, they used a lot of Amapiano influenced genre. Amapiano is not a genre of dance. You see a lot of Afro influence within it. So that would be a style that you could potentially count here. You also see Vogue. HHI, you technically have to have 3 styles in order to get full point value. Here, you only have to have 2. So they met the style threshold for getting full point value potential for it. Secondly, you are allowed to fuse styles. So a good example would be if you're noticing there's certain studio style components that are embedded or fused throughout a set that has Vogue in it or whacking in it, and you notice certain transitions are definitely not Vogue, and you've seen it tailored to the contemporary style, it can still work for this circuit, even though in HHI that normally wouldn't. Does that kind of make sense? So hopefully I'm able to provide a sense of clarity. And if you're like, Jess, I'm still confused, I believe it's on page 19 of the rules and regulations. If I'm remembering it correctly, I have the rule book pulled up as like one of my tabs, but I can't get to it without pausing. So I'll just go off of the best of my ability in terms of what I'm able to remember right here in this moment to be, the best advocate for what we're looking at here in this way. So those are kind of my little overviews here. I really enjoyed the routine in regards to structure. They were very clean. That is a component. You gotta make sure your synchronicity is in check. Usage of formations, your levels, dynamics, their transitions, not a basket run in sight. Mwah! To me, that's always the victory. It's gonna be really cool to talk through. So here we go from the top. Also, little side notes. If you're ever curious when it comes to how teams enter and exit stage, you can receive deductions if you have an entire pre-show situation or post-show celebration, or you continue to dance after your dance is done situation. That you can receive deductions for it. And so based on the rules that I'm trying to remember here. So noticing when you see crews come out, they set up and they're still, the timer starts at that point. So that's why that's important that they have a way to start. Notice from the jump, we already have levels. That's really, really helpful here. The more levels you have, not just throwing levels for the sake of it, but by having levels, it's going to allow more options. You have so many people use them, right? And so it's a great way for your eye to have more things to digest and to captivate. And another component is your performance, how facially and in movement quality and in synergy with the rest of your team, how all of that comes into play with your projection, right? There's also a lot of times when it comes to verbiage and what things are looked at. Remember, I didn't train under the Wdcc rules. I only asked maybe one clarifying question to Stephen in regards to style justification, because that was something that I just wanted to kind of have my ducks in a row on. But in other sections of the criteria, that would be something that please take what I say just as a sense of curiosity, not as an end-all be-all. I am not the end-all be-all, okay? I'm just a perspective. So I do think with the levels and dynamics and how we have our presentation and projection, all of those things are going to be slightly different in how they're adjudicated depending on your circuit. Please keep that in mind when you look at these circuits. Even if you have crews that enter into them, their sets are going to modify accordingly, especially if they read the rules. So from here, notice we have a very interesting transition with half of our group transitioning with their arms. Notice the range. Range is how you get from A to B of a move. It's not the position itself. That is part of it. That's the timing. The range is the actual movement through it. That's the kind of stuff that's really, really tricky to get clean, but that's what makes the routine so captivating, which is what this was right here. So you have this uppercut motion going on with half of your team, and then the other half using it to help transition out. Really nice, very fun. I love the shaking from the camera. I don't know if it's because of where the camera was resting and somebody just moved and it caused it to shake or what. I don't know. It's a freaking vibe though. It's really nice. Also notice even here, you still have a subtle level difference going on from our dancers popping off in the center, nice fullness and projection with your dancers, just creating more complexity in the directions. It still makes sense. There's still balance here. Looks really nice. And then it's now turned into unison, but then you had your front line break off to the front. So that's really cool. I love that going into a subtle add-on with the head, everybody's arms in the same position. Also, as a side note, both for HHI and for WDCC, they have two separate panels of judges. And I don't know if WDCC sits every other. I'm assuming yes, I could be wrong. But I know for HHI, they sit skill and performance alternating, because you're not like, as a skill judge, I wasn't sitting next to a skill judge. I was sitting next to a performance judge. We're looking at completely different criteria. So people who are looking at the artistic score versus the technical score, there's two separate criteria they're looking for. I'm giving an overview of it all, hence why I really take what I'm saying as one perspective of 100, okay? If I'm just looking at the technique, I'm not looking at the formations or the presentation of it or the sound, like how the music is edited. That is a component of the competition, is how is your actual mixed? Does it flow well? Does it make sense? Is it easy to digest? Is there profanity in it? You can get deducted for it and borderline disqualified if your track is too inappropriate for the scene. Like it's very real there, right? All of this is in the rules and regulations. So all of that goes into your overall score. It's not just who had the coolest set, who had the most styles represented, or who had the biggest impact, or who's the biggest name. It doesn't matter your name. Royal Family is just a crew from New Zealand. Yes, they have a very influential, impressionable timeline in their career as a crew, but I'm gonna tell you straight up, really good chance the judges have a pretty high integrity, because some of the judges trained me for HHI, so I know who's on the panel, and they, out of anybody I would trust to actually judge the crew, completely unbiased, because it's not fair to the crew if they were judging them in a way that was setting them up for failure because of their name. That's not fair to them, right? It's not fair to anybody else. You treat everybody with equality, and you're being competed against a criteria, not against other crews. And a lot of people don't know that. That is a very true thing that does get taught. As a judge, you do not judge Royal Family against IDCO. You go up against a criteria, who did it better during the finals, during that one set that day. And that's who you win, right? And that's kind of how it's supposed to be structured. So I know we're touching on so many things, but there's so many things you could talk about when you look at a set. And if you're noticing, this is one of the first times I'm actually covering an actual mega crew in a circuit for a reason, because I want to tread very carefully and steward this well, because there's so many things that can be touched on. So I'm so sorry if I tend to go down rabbit holes. All of them matter, and I hope I just spark curiosity for you to go and read these rules and go look and dive into these things for yourself and have conversations with people. There's so many people willing to want to learn alongside you, right? So anyway, moving on here, I'll try not to move on too much, but the swings, notice for here, the content itself is not overly difficult in terms of polyrhythms, meaning multitasking, multiple things happening at the same time. They're balancing that out with the transition, levels, angles, and range choices, right? So there's always something that's going in play. I like this peek out happening, and I like the redirection of the head happening there too. It allows for us as an audience to be able to look where these peekaboo moments are taking place. And I like the cleanliness of the line going all the way across as well. It's cool. The reach out there, that's pretty risky, because you have to maintain balance, because a part of your score is going to be how stable are you. So if you're sitting there wavering your weight, that's going to impact how it looks, and that's going to impact your score. Everything impacts your score, all the way down to your costuming. Your costume has to make sense to the type of styles you're justifying. So really interesting stuff, right? The crawls were very interesting out of that too. Once again, look, we got 3-part levels right here off the get-go with complexity through depth. Look at this. This is fun, and it's assisted. So there's a lot of risk taking because of this hinge over commitment. Having everybody the same angle, that's impressive, guys. And then you have this angle, boom, arched up. We love that. So I really appreciate this right here. Put that on a t-shirt. Really nice demonstration of using levels, but showcasing it in a complex way. That's nice. The reach up's really nice to set down. All this here, notice, yes, you have some repetitiveness going on. You got about a situation with the partnering happening about 4 times, but notice what's going on in the front line. They are moving. This is where levels are really fun to see. They go from the side to the middle, side, and middle. So yes, you have most things repeated. That's a risk. That's going to be a risk. The more you repeat something, it's what are you going to counterbalance that with? Because the more you're repeating something, the more that you're giving me an opportunity to digest it, which is going to slowly lower your complexity and your difficulty. Because if you're able to do it multiple times, it's not going to be the same as being able to hit something that doesn't get done very often, right? So it's something about how you package your information as well. The reach up there, this right here reminded me of 2013 HHI Royal Family set. So it does feel like we're tailoring a couple little, nuances of the first generation royal family scene, of course, with Paris. This doesn't feel like a Paris set. I think that's great, a great direction for the team, because I do know whenever your team is known under a particular director or direction, it can be really hard to kind of make your own kind of brand out of it, if that makes sense, your own variant of it, without people always playing the comparison game. It's not fair, but that's the way of life a lot of times in the industry. So I'm hopefully able to provide a sense of encouragement to the team here as well, that this is really fun. I like it because 2013 was well over 10 years ago. I like this because it does specifically remind me of the bite this part. And then, of course, they referenced the Super Bowl with Paris, but it feels once again more like a reference, not a straight biting situation. Are they at risk of lowering their creativity score? Yes, by doing that. I personally feel, or that's how I personally would advocate a lowered creativity score if I'm seeing too much of leaning into things that have already existed in the scene, and not creating your own variant within it, which they technically did because of either the remix or how they packaged it, but you still see it heavily inspired off of what we've already been affiliated with. So the reach up is fun, the accents it down. So notice we started with the head and we traveled the energy down to the fingers and the arms, having it transition over into columns with the reach up. We are seeing this is like our familiar choice with stylized hands with the arms brought up. How they choose to go about it is going to be a very interesting thing here, right? Where you've already seen it kind of every other. You've seen one line in the very back kind of tailored to that, and then you see everybody and their mama doing it too. I appreciate the clarity of the columns because it allows you to see the subtlety and the switch off of the every other. That was cool. From there, the hit there is also nice. I like the head on that. They end up letting the head send them over to separate and create more of a spaced out formation. Their formations are changing all the time. That's something you're getting measured on the whole time from only one set of your judges. So it's, like I said, it is not just your formations and your outfit and your mix and your staging choices and your projection. That's just half your panel that you got to satisfy in that. The other half is going to be justify the styles you're choosing to bring to the table. And you have to showcase complexity, and you have to showcase a sense of authenticity behind it. Or other teams are going to beat you by a whole point or hundredths of a point. That's how tough and how close these comps are. So man, this is really fun. The lift over there, fun. So notice we got levels once again. So you have your dancers over on the sides. They're also, that's not a basket run. They're matching tempo. They're hitting, it's polyrhythm through delegation is what I would call this, where you have different groupings trying to satisfy different parts of the music without having one person try to do it all and multitask through all of it. So you have your feature in front, and you have your columns on the sides. They could basket run off. They're not, because they're factoring in tempo, and they're creating a really interesting bounce through their torso to help make it a little bit more, it honestly gives a more animalistic perspective. Could it be because of the type of track we're dealt with? Maybe. I don't mind that. So having the fullness there, the reach up there, notice the hips being used here, and then you have everybody else with the swing of the arms is nice, reaching out and across. Really fun to see there. Super full. We're here for it. Love the arms up, arm swing. So the only note that I could potentially see with Royal here, if they were to, if I was doing feedback or whatever, firstly, I would love to be just digging in the trenches on understanding more of the nuances of the criteria. It's just so fun to talk through different competitions, right? Before I'd even be comfortable doing that. But one thing I can see, just an overview, is you can run into the problem of whenever you're becoming when you're creating more quantity in certain sequences, and you're not balancing it out through your dynamics, through your formations, through your transition, through your projection or anything like that, you can run into a difficulty. Like your score can slowly, you may not get awarded as many points as if you deviated it or create a more polyrhythmic advantage to the choice. So that's just like one note that I would give, but that's a note that I've kind of given Royal for years, and that's okay. If that's something, don't fix what ain't broke. I understand why they have certain niche of movement, because it has led to a lot of success with the brand of the crew, and it still makes it very competitive despite that risk they take. It is a risk that they choose to take, right? Switch over. Now there's the rude boy. I like how she takes it. She goes slap and slap for the rude boy part. And then you have levels, and you also have different directions. So you have half your group low, half your group's on the side. Really fun. She has a nice little moment. Boom, boom. I like the little salute there. Nice shift in the tone of the track. Also, tone of our movement is reflecting that. That's really, really helpful. There's a chest there. Now all this. Boom, doom, 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 doom. Love the ISOs coming in on that. And then we have a lot of our hips rotating around. This is heavy, heavy Super Bowl inspiration. You can run the risk, like I said, I've already mentioned this, a lowered creativity score because of the reference. It doesn't feel as innovative as the potential of what it could be, but I really appreciate the reference. I also come from the lens from just a, from the industry side. If any team ever is going to cover this, Royal Family would be the team you'd want to do it, right? I think that's just kind of as a side personal note outside of just the review of it. That's how I feel. But back to like the actual looking and review for a competition stage, it's one category out of 10 that can be affected by making the choice. That's life. Sometimes you have to take those risks, which is why sometimes some teams choose to everybody wear the exact same thing. It can affect your attire score, but it can help improve your synchronicity score because everyone's wearing the same thing and the garment is moving in the same way in texture. So it just depends on how you want to go about building your ideal score format. So anyway, so a little pony moment with the arms. Once again, we have more of a repeated sequence on that. There's your stylized hand again. So if that would be another note I would give Royal, is potentially finding different ways of showcasing that stylized hand and that angle without just deviating to that choice, because that can provide more oversaturation, once again affecting creativity and difficulty. I like that. Notice the clarity of the fact that we're so far back, which I love. Love fixed cam wide shots, guys. I love it because you can see everything, and if you can see something, it needs to be bigger, right? Yeah, all that. The accent there, notice with the head was really cool. That's really fast. That is quick. So I appreciate the difficulty in how they're messing around with the timing. That's cool. Especially with going unison like that. That's cool. So then there's your levels once again. So we've seen a lot of this torso and lower body integration, right? We've been seeing more of this open, I wouldn't call it second position, it's more of a studio term, right? But where we have our legs separated and our body squatted nice and low. Yes, there are different variants, but a lot of the impression in how we're setting it up in context feels similar. So that's just something you can always be mindful of, the context and how you set up in your choices. But it's still really interesting, right? I love that everyone is so clear in their choice. So when you see a leg swivel like that, it's so clear and readable. That is really fun. I love moments like that. So go in. Love that choice. Boom. In, up. A lot of times you'll see people add a little groove in the torso. The fact it was isolated, but it still had a nice ring about it. It was really fun. Really cool. So go high, low. Come on, tension right there with the hip. Made it a feature moment. And then they all go and reset low. All this here. Now the name of this move. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Okay, I believe it's called a Tebetsa from South Africa, this move right here, which is why I was referencing the specific areas that I was. A lot of South African Afro movements integrated throughout the routine. I think there's a lot, like for me, because of the type of rules are here, and to my knowledge of how I would execute them, I would give them that style. I would give them Afro, personally. But also, once again, I'm sitting here in this position. I'm fine with where I'm at. I love it. I love being able to do this. But that would definitely be something, you know, of feedback, and that's kind of up to how you view and read the rules, right? So all that right there. All that there. Boom, da-doom, doom, doom, doom. And they syncopated it too. So it's not just the like how you would normally see it done. A lot of times you would see people do a vibration, da 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 da, especially in the viral Amapiano scene of music. Remember, I've referenced Amapiano earlier. That's considered more of a music genre where you see a lot of viral movements that are under more of the Afro side of things, which Afro encompasses different areas of Africa, you know, that was referencing in the viral moves and the communal movements that have come from those, which is what that term a lot of times is used as. So I digress, which is why we are talking about what we are. So, well, that's really fun, traveling it through. I love the ISO of the pull on that, which is really fun. I don't mind it. Now this right here, if you've seen the Super Bowl Rihanna, that would be something you very clearly see. Even the whip at the end on that. Yeah, when the flick away. And it's still very clean. It was cleanly executed. All that. That was a risk they took. That was a sense of, were they trying to go for the sense of being like a signature move or signature sequence? Maybe. But that's just more so at the discretion of the judge and how they would interpret that within the score or criteria that they're given, right? So that's fine. Kick is nice. Rotation is fine. Even those coming on, they're not basket running. That, like, when I tell you guys, basket runs die so hard, and I'm so thankful that we do not have one here. I'm telling you guys, like, the pickups are nice on that as well. It feels like we were doing I think it's called a Betha kick, boom, but it was more so like a different type of posture in the transition, right? It's fun though. And the drop down is cool. There's your levels. This little lift there, that also reminds me of 2013. Yeah. Either 2013 or 2015 Royal. I've seen this lift before. And the little press up is fun. Lift out. Da, 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 da. Just the whole energy coming out of that's really fun. I enjoy it. It's not something I've never seen before. Hence exactly what I said. I've seen it referenced before. But also it comes down to who did the criteria better. We're not comparing Royal Family here to 2015 Royal. We're just citing. We're not comparing Royal Family to any other team that competed at WDCC. That's not the proper way to look at this. How did they do against the criteria? They got first place because they met the criteria in a way that gave them to the 100th point, that first place spot, because they met the criteria to that standard. Does that make sense? Now, we could also talk through if you had 1,000 crews compete, could there be different people on the podium? There's always that chance. And it also depends on what people bring that day compared to the day before, Things are not set in stone from prelims. These crews change their routines all the freaking time. And Royal Family is known for that too, especially based on their points that they get from prelims to semis. Many crews do that. You know, you have the ability to change it. You can change it, especially if it helps your score. So, if anything, it's a fantastic way to learn how to think on your feet, and your choreo retention freaking skyrockets being on these teams, man. It's cool. Reach down that. Now this right here. Welcome to Vogue, baby. We're here. There's your catwalk. So notice we're having some key elements involved. Boom, we're knocking it down. Also with our track. I was taught the track should not be the sole indicator of what style. That ding sound, that crash, you hear it so many times in Vogue. It's one of those beautiful timbres, which is sound context or tonal colors that come into play on a track. That's an indicator of, oh my gosh, that BPM, that speed on this track, the tempo, mixed with that, there's so much opportunity to explore that style there, right? Because all the communities of all the styles that you get to dive into, you have the ability of understanding the dance by understanding the music, right? So having certain sounds in your track help advocate justification of a style. So this helps here for Vogue. We do see Vogue here in the key elements that I'm noticing so far, which is really nice. Walks are nice to place it through. Does look like we are mirrored on each side. It's great. This feels like we are style justifying specifically, right? And the rotation around, there's our dip. We're here for it. There's our levels right here on the back. On the sides, be more of a hand performance on it. Dip it back. They had like the shortest duck walk in the world on the side. Lift up is nice. I love the accent with the head. Commitment there is really nice. He goes, he freaking sends that hand over. So we have these subtle feature moments, which is also really nice to help enhance. It enhances your overall composition in the section. It's not just unison the whole time. We're seeing so many dynamic choices, right? With little features. We have different levels, popping up, popping down, add-ons, breakaways. On the course of an 8 count, like guys, there's 4 things going on at the same time here, yet it's so readable. It's great. They understand how to do a Mega Cruise set. They were Royal Family's known for being the blueprint for HHI way back in the day in the early 2010s. There's a reason why they know how to make a set. Now the question is, do they know how to hit the criteria that day better than the other crews? Once again, it goes back to the main point. Did they match the criteria to the standard that gets them placed? The answer is they hit the criteria well to get them first. There you go, you know? So it makes me very excited to see what happens in the circuit in the future, how Royal Family continues to grow under this type of criteria as well. Reach over, come on, subtlety in the hip. Really nice on the uses of props. Some people may be like, Jess, what are the rules on props? Depends on the division. So I do know in the Super Cruise you are allowed handheld props, but I was read through the deductions. I don't know if I read about if a prop falls, you get deducted for it. I know in HHI, if a prop falls, it's considered a safety hazard, so you get deducted. But I don't, so don't quote me on that for WDCC. Go read it for yourself. I didn't read it. I didn't see it off the cuff, but it could be there. So please go look and read that. And I do know there are certain props allowed for Super Crew that are not in the smaller groupings. So that is a component too. That crews can very easily get deducted for if they don't read the rules. So that is something that they do have. But notice this prop is a liability. It's a high risk, high reward. It can very easily work against you in terms of cleanliness. If that prop is not actually doing what it needs to do in comparison to those next to you, it's an extension of you. It's going to be held to the same standard that your arm is. So that's why even how they're holding it on the side, that can factor in to that cleanliness score here, right? The drop down is nice. So you had a little grouping. You had a group that transitions between this group in the back corner. And then everybody here nice and low. Come on, dip. I like the lift, the jump up. Helps with different levels. Then everybody has that shing. You hear that sword. And then you have everybody, boom, go and extend to the side. I love this little bleed up coming out. It was a very residual, good energy. So it technically have 2 features, one section versus another section, right? If we're coming into the scene, let's go. She said, come on now. Slide through. We have a nice, more animalistic crawling. We're justifying 3 levels here. You have it on the ground, more of a crouching position. You have a little bit more slouched over. And then you have those nice and high up. Really nice. Step up there. We come right back up. Hit it around. Come on, little hip accent. She punches him down. He hits it over. Come on, ponies. They're transitioning with content off. They are being intentional with their tempo and their music the whole time. Musicality is a component in how this gets justified as well. Love that. Knock on that. I really like from there how they pick up from either the shoulder, the elbow, or the wrist when they're choosing to lift up this stick. Is it the same? Yes or no? And then having it nice and subtle, accenting off of the hips was really fun. Now going off the 2 columns with 2 accents on the front with 3 accent points on the side. So you technically have so many things going on all the time. I love talking about crews, guys. Oh, man. Gosh, so fun. Okay, switch off there. So notice my girl right here. Her stick wasn't the cleanest in that, right? In that setup. So watch. That right there. That's not going to cost you your set, but if you have too many things like that, that can affect the section in terms of your score, right? And that's just with any circuit, honestly, especially a circuit like this or HHI or, any circuit that synchronicity is a component, that's going to affect it. It just depends on how many times something like that happens, right? So that's what happens, but we get it all. I like the setup with the chest. That's really cool. And notice the commitment all the way through with the head. It's really fun. So something that Royal Family has never really struggled with is the performance side in terms of stage presence in the synergy with each other. That is such a competitive quality they have because if you didn't know this, in the event of a tie, which a lot of times it doesn't happen that often, but because you're going down to the 100th, in the event of a tie, how do you determine it? Whoever gets the artistic score, like who has the higher artistic score, which would be includes performance, right? It includes the attire. It includes a lot of those components. That higher score is what would that team would win that. And now for me, I remember, like I said, I'm more on the technical side. I love being able to look at styles and understand the hybrids and the fusion and the difficulties and seeing how they're inserted in musicality and stability and cleanliness and all that stuff. But I also really like being able to see how the staging helps influence those choices as well. So, which is why I love doing YouTube, because I get to do feedback without having to sit and judge. I can just talk through the feedback here, which is great. But I mean, I don't mind judging. I just love doing feedback way more, because it just feels way more enjoyable to me. I don't feel so pressured to justify to the thousandth sometimes. Anyway, the hips are really fun. Punch down is nice. They do little toe taps coming out of it. Go in high to low high. Nice. No, all of this. Notice we have the shing shing, that kind of sound in play. Now, what we're doing here, we have this whole grouping in the center, melt towards each other. We do a little curtain reveal, and I like this little stab as we transition with the prop out, because that's another thing. What are you going to do with your prop? Are you just going to leave it on stage? That's always a high risk. I wouldn't advise doing that, but they're transitioning off to get those props off so they can have a nice clean finish. So now you have your group here. We have levels in play. We already have a transition happening in front, which is really cool. I like the head rotation coming out of it too. Hit da-da-da-da, and I like the reach over to the side, hit uncross. Notice the head is committed to it as well. I like the arm swings on that. And the pull-up is really cool. And so as a little side note here, remember when I was talking about earlier, if you've made it this far, talking earlier about, you know, they went more a little bit simpler in terms of the quantity. Like, they're doing a lot of movements more than twice. They're doing it around 4 times, which is very risky. I've said this. And I do believe a component that I've been noticing, at least in this set specifically, because that's what I'm trying to just have it clear to, is the amount of power and presentation of doing that thing as consistently as they do is a very impressive feat that does help enhance difficulty, is what I'm noticing here. From an empathetic lens of doing the things, but also seeing it in context of what they were doing to get into it and what they're doing to get out of it. So it is something that I understand. It just goes back to how you look at the criteria and how you view the structure based on what you're given, right? So then you have a little dip going in right here, nice and low. So they hit it out, let the tap, tap, tap. So now we're getting everybody and their mama back on stage. We love it. They love the moment here. Ding, ding, the subtlety there. We're doing a little drag across, and we end up doing a little crossover mirroring. Now this song is, what is it? Like Jenny, right? So I think it's really cool to have this song here. Is Paris, I mean, I don't think Paris is on this. I think We Them Boys choreographed it. So I know that's not a Paris affiliated track, but there is a Afro influence involved on it. I haven't seen it all the way through, but this is really fun to see their take on it. I do see there are differences in their choices. So the hinge over, and I like that they took it and hinged it from a mirror to the front. And they have that Jenny, and then we have the switch off there, which is really nice. So you still have your feature there. Arm swings are really nice coming out of that. She hits it, boom, boom, let's go. Good energy on that. The full energy with the head. As we travel it forward, notice we're spacing it all out. And then we go Jenny. They took a risk on everybody lifting that leg. The risk is if one person falls over, we can see it because everybody's holding it the same way. It's a unison check, right? So it goes Jenny. I like the repetitiveness of this choice because of how they chose to progress it. Notice that we're adding the arms. Notice how we're varying out the arms on this too. Look at this. And it goes, Jenny, hair down, nails down. So they're playing with the words on this too. And then having your feature, she was the only one looking front, which just shows you how readable this is, where everybody was facing side except for your feature right here. It's not because she has hot pink hair, but because she's in center. I would probably give her that. But because of how everybody's so clear in where their head direction was, to see it snap to the front, you're like, we only had one person looking at us until that point. Really cool. And that was still low-key. It was buildable, where we had our arms up and we progressed them down, but this stayed just as consistent every single time. That was cool. Now we've gone over into a huge V. More so I'd call it, I don't know if I'd give it a triangle or a pyramid, because it is filled in, but it's not filled in all the way. So that's a V. That was a terrible V on my end, but I hope you're able to see it. V, boom, you have one person controlling, and then you have a secondary V in the back. Really nice. Love it. That's a guada guada, baby. Love it. And they go straight into a little head ISO. I do believe that's in the original of the track. But how they chose to do it, what we're looking for there is, are we going to give them credit for citing the choreo? I personally don't believe that's the judge's responsibility to be able to take any song in the land, know what dance is a part of it, and see a crew do it and go, ah, they did that one move that's in reference to this track, so they're citing it. Same ways with the Super Bowl choreo. It's all going to come down to that. That would only affect one category out of the 10, personally for me. But once again, that's just one perspective out of many. Go be curious about this yourselves. For me, I know that that moves in there, but what we can look at, let's say you didn't know. Look at the isolation, look at the cleanliness of it, look at how it integrated within what part of the music they chose to justify it with. Did it work? Yes or no? There you go. And then if you happen to be like, I like this song, and you go and see it, then you can learn something new about the inspiration on both sides, right? So I consider that a win-win in those situations. The accent through is really cool. And then we go, the fact that she's able to move her arm like that in everyone's range of the head, meaning the distance that they're moving that head from one point to another with her hand, it matches. So the distance here matches the distance here. That's dope. Especially with the amount of people, that's freaking cool. Yep, and then we're continuing to pull that energy back. Goodness gracious, look at the spacing. Oh, chef's kiss. I love clean choreos. Now this move right here, we're here for, I believe that is called a dakiwe. If I'm remembering, like this move right here, you've seen it in Spell by 17. Kirsten was a choreographer for that, and she was on OG Royal. So I see a lot of the influence. Like we've seen this move pop off quite often, especially if you've partaken in any piano trends. So that's really fun that we've been able to cite at least two types of terms or moves that come from places bigger than us. It's just really fun that there's communities that are represented from these variants and from these hybrids. It's just really cool. Anyway, I love the knock on that. You see how full and powerful that was, going from the subtlety, going and upping the dynamic and the level and volume of the fullness. That helps make it way more impactful, and it allows us to understand that percussion to the degree that they want us to feel going into the outro. That's cool. Pick up there. So we have our head still involved, but it feels a little bit different than how they presented it near the beginning of this section. It's cool. Part of it's because of the direction that everybody is. Secondly, it's also what is the rest of their body doing as they're integrating this in. It's cool. Come on, hair whip. Level justification right there. You had half your group hinged over, half of them standing. Boom, 2-part level. And they bring it over. I like the hop, hop, hop. And that was still pretty clean too. Guys, that's impressive. The hop hops are great. The just Jenny, and then we slap down, which is nice. Come on, subtlety. That is different than this one, right? And part of it comes from, I believe we're using a different part of our neck in the ISO, but let's double check that. Oh no, they weren't doing that. I'm so sorry. They're just interrupting flow with the chest there instead of letting the head get involved. Really cool, the subtlety, right? And it allows you to hear that boom, boom sound when they wanted you to hear it. That is taking ownership of your musicality. We love it. Then we have a little trio coming out of it, little ball change. Come on now. And we do a little pull. Nice little subtle stylized hand, making it a nice, just nice little add-on. And then we do, oh, I've seen that before. Ball changes. Yeah, boom. I've seen it as a, it's not a, there's a viral trend called the Hambuena with this little heel twist situation. I'm not saying they're quoting that, but because we're on the spectrum of Afro, that's what I'm trying to keep my wheelhouse in, just out of respect on trying to meet with what we're looking at. But you could consider it more like a heel twist with a hinge over, but based on posture, Hambuena, like half of a Hambuena, if that, right? So out of that, come on, that gives a little heel dig out of it. And then right here, boom, at the tail end, that's considered a royal family signature of the crowns up, right? But even in the finish, you got a feature here, you got a whole line of people in the back, you got 2 groupings on the side, you got levels represented all the way to the bitter end. So when it comes to a crew that is showcased, at least recognizing all the criteria from what I've read on the rules, they've done it. They've done so. I think they follow the rules mighty well. Now, do I think there could be areas in which they improve? Of course, but also keep in mind, I am one perspective out of many. I'm also an untrained person in this specific context of WDCC. Remember, my background is HHI. They have it's similar in some of the overlap, but there are differences, and I just want to be very clear on that. Please don't take what I say as, oh, Jessica said so it must be that. I just want to provide hopefully some clarity of how many things truly get looked at a routine, not just does it look cool, what styles do they have. No, there's like 9 to 10 other categories and subcategories that are looked at the same time. There's so much to look at that you have two completely separate groupings of judges to really be good stewards of those categories. Because if you have, like for me, I can get so overwhelmed and I kind of feel bad that I feel like I miss so much even here, and I could have done a way better job of articulating, even though we're about 40 minutes, 50 minutes in here. There's so much that I didn't touch on that's just so fascinating that we could talk through just in the specific context of WDCC final set right here. So if you're like, Jess, I'm so curious about this component that you mentioned, can you touch more on that? Let me know. You can say it in the comments. But also, if you're really curious about the rules and regulations or how these types of competitions are judged, like I said, all of them are literally on their websites. I will attach the rules and regs of this competition in the description, as well as the official website. So if you want to go and actually support and look through all of those things. But the fact that I've had the privilege and the permission to do something like this, I hope I was able to be helpful. And I hope that I can continue to be a good steward in this position. And I'm always one that wants to grow and learn. There's a chance that I've made many, many mistakes while talking through this. I was just talking from a first watch. You have to keep in mind there was a prelims involved. There was a qualifier that already took place. They have a semis involved, I believe. So this is like the last performance that Royal did. So there could be so many other components that we could have touched on depending on which take we watched. If you're in Royal family and you watch this and you're like, hey, Jess, we hated this, let me know and I'll take it down. But if you're like, hey, Jess, we appreciate it, I would love to know. I will love being helpful, not just for trying to be somebody who advocates for competitions that really want to be a positive contribution to the industry, which is what I truly believe WDCC strives for. I want to be helpful in that way, but I also want to be helpful for crews if you guys are in a position where you want to grow and you want to continue to innovate and showcase your brand on a competitive level. And if I can be of help for that, I would love to be of help for that too. But Royal family, you know, I'll be hanging out with you guys on World of Street Women Fighter. It's going to be so great. I'm so excited for the commentary from you guys in the comments. Please be respectful. Just as I will be respectful of your perspective as well. And remember, just my opinion. I am not the end-all be-all. So please keep that in mind. You guys know me. I know you. I'm Jess. And I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.